The following broadcast may contain explicit language and adult themes. Viewer discretion is advised. The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts, talent, and guests, and do not reflect the opinions, views, and standards of Pyromedia Enterprises, affiliates, subsidiaries, or its members.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, because you can be watching this at any time of the day. It is your Healthy Him team, 2/3 of it. Okay, Ryan D. and
11 St. James.
okay, come on, 11 St. James. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling blessed and highly flavored.
Flavored.
Yes.
Okay, highly flavored.
I'm feeling raspberry today, darling. Raspberry.
Come on, flavored. We love that.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a little, ran down, tired.
Ran down. Who did you encounter? Cardi B?
I'm just tired.
Ran down on that bitch twice.
I slept for like 4 or 5 hours. It was a lot.
That's not good.
Let me eat this.
A growing mind needs 8 hours of sleep.
I'm a little hungry. I've been trying to eat. Give me a second, y'all. Hold on.
Oh, let's give her a moment to gather herself. While she's doing that, today's topic is about starting over and healing after being traumatized. There is a formula to healing. How do we do it?
Well, first we got to thank
Oh, yeah.
APLA Health for giving us the jobs we have, CDC for bringing the Muncie Hunty, and Power Media for always producing us so beautifully. We thank you all. Okay.
2 snaps and a clap.
Okay, and I did it backwards this time because usually I do Power, CDC, APLA Health.
We're a little discombobulated today, clearly.
I am. I'm like all over the scatterbrain. Like I didn't let stuff out that wasn't supposed to be out. Like I was just like, what's going on? Like I don't know.
A whole carry, a shit carry.
Yeah, I'm just emotionally drained, which is why I'm taking the day off for myself, a self-care day. I need it for me. I emotionally drained myself last night for 2 hours, so I had to like regroup, and I still didn't regroup. So But other than that, let's get into what we do here. So Healthy Him, we have our swab and chill. As you know, as you always see, our very old commercial that you see that we need an update on is essentially at-home HIV test. Okay, we will send it to you if you don't like being in anyone's clinic, you don't like being in anyone's space where you're like, oh, I have to get this test. Everybody's going to know my status. You can do it in the comfort of your own home.
We love that.
Okay, and we send you $25 just for doing it. Okay. And now that is for everyone, okay? So if you are a man, a woman, a non-binary individual, whoever, trans man, trans woman, whatever the case may be, however you identify, okay? Anybody could get it, and they can still get $25. You just have to call one of us, and we can give you to the right program, because Networks now has OrQuicks, and we also have OrQuicks. So
we love that.
The wealth is here. Also, we have our checklist for our Black queer men, 18 and 39. If you come and get STI testing, HIV testing, and a mini PrEP combo, we also offer monkeypox vaccinations included. You can get up to $100, but you have to do the monkeypox in order to get the $100. So if you just do the HIV and STI, that's $50. But if you want that full 100, you got to do the monkeypox vaccinations, because monkeypox is still out there, y'all.
It is. She lurking and she waiting.
So
whoever she can devour,
it could get you. So be careful. Now, we also have linkage to care. So for those who haven't been in care in a long time and are PIs and who are like, I need to be back in care, I need to be on my meds, etc., we're here to link you back. We also have those individuals who, need a safe space. And we're revamping our Thrive group right now. But she will be back soon.
Construction.
Hopefully June, July latest. She will be back and running the way she should be, smoothly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, other than that,
do we have
on Monday?
Mondays, we have our POV runway bootcamp that has been going beautifully. Shout out to all the participants who have been coming, learning, and developing, and winning on the floor now. I'm super excited to have brought that out here. Of course, we have our Healthy Him show on Tuesdays from 4:30 to 5:30. Then we have our hip hop class tonight from 7 to 9, taught by former Healthy Him co-host Dwayne. We have the men's mountaintop group that is
Mountaintop Plus now. She changed the name.
It's Mountaintop Plus now because we're opening up demographics.
Shout out to my girl.
Inclusion is trendy this month.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have BQT on Thursday is led by our very own Ryan. So we have programming for everybody here. We want you to come check us out and find your tribe, find your place where you can thrive and learn and develop and also stay on top of your sexual health. So that is our out here breakdown.
Yes. And this Thursday, BQT is producing Byron Keaton's.
The ever legendary, my brother, Byron Keaton, Juicy Couture, Miyake Mugler, is hosting a meet and greet in Payton to precede his first annual Birth of a Legend ball. That is going to be happening on Friday. So if you want to come meet the legend, kiki, sip, paint, have a cute time, come check us out on Thursday and get prepared for the Friday's festivities. It's going to be really awesome.
Yes, and we're also still testing for his ball that is on Friday.
It'll be the last opportunity you have to get your ticket, girl. So you call your girlfriends, you get in that Uber, you can bring your ass, okay?
When is it stopping? When is testing stopping?
When we close the doors.
Oh, work. So 9:30?
9:30.
9:30.
If you don't get it by 9:30, girl, she's clipped. Okay.
By 9:30 p.m. on Thursday, if you are not tested for the ball, you're going to be paying at the door.
I'm sorry.
At that point. So just so the girls know.
He takes Cash App and Venmo.
Okay, period. I love that. Oh, he going to get on them. I know that's right. That's smart. Come on. That's smart. I like
your uncle.
I love that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Friday is the ball. And if you're not there,
you're square.
Exactly. You're going to be missing a lot because I'm walking and it's going to be iconic. Okay. And I'm coming hard for my uncle.
But, you know, she might do LSATs. We don't know.
Period. Oh, come on.
We don't know.
But I'm coming hard for my uncle. So it's going to be real cute. It's my birthday month too. And, you know, my category is calling for my birthstone. So I was like, I have to walk. Like, it's May. Why not? So, you know.
You love a May set.
Exactly. But without further ado, let's get into today's topic, shall we?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Let's get it. No more pain. 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 No drama. No more drama in my life. I ate that for the.
I'm gonna need you to find the key. And
hold on.
No, we don't have to do it.
No more pain.
No.
Is it up or down?
I'm having. Stick to dancing.
No drama.
Jesus. That's
no more drama.
One child didn't get the signal.
Hey, okay. That's just probably can't sing either. I think
fabulous dancers.
Exactly. Your children are dancers. Mine are singers. That's a gag.
Let's skip that generation. All right.
It's okay. But yes, y'all, no more drama, no more pain. Okay. So first we talked about when we first started, what is healthy? Okay. Healthy him. Then we talked about last week or the week before last, I think, I don't know. What is unhealthy and how do you identify that? Now we're talking about how to move on from trauma and one who's being traumatized. Now I tried to get our infamous Marty on the show, but he has been a very busy man because he no longer even participates on BQT anymore. But yeah, I would have loved to have a therapist on, but you know what? Coming from a psychology degree individual and someone who has experienced trauma, we can come from a personal perspective today. Okay, and that's just what it's gonna be. But nevertheless, what is the true meaning of trauma? Do we know?
I actually looked up the meaning of trauma for you all. So Mind.org UK said going through very stressful and frightening or distressing events is sometimes called trauma. When we talk about emotional or psychological trauma, we might mean situations or events that we find traumatic. And then it further breaks down. There are three types of trauma. There is acute trauma, results from a single event. Chronic trauma is repeated or prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse. And then complex trauma is exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events, often in an invasive interpersonal nature.
That's deep. I didn't know it was three, sections.
Yeah,
there's three breakdowns. That's interesting to me.
There's definitely. So I think most people equate like PTSD or trauma with like serving in war or being off in like the military, but you can also have PTSD from like Kim Kardashian. I'll use her as an example. There was that event where she was robbed in Paris. That situation gave her post-traumatic stress disorder because it was a single event. Or being in an abusive relationship and repeatedly having traumatic episodes happen can lead to PTSD. And then the complex trauma, you have the trauma from the event and then how you're handling it, and then other events on top of it creates complex trauma, which can lead to complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's true. Okay, so based on the definitions that we got, do you feel like it's easy or possible to move on from being traumatized or experiencing trauma?
Easy is not the metric that I would use to apply to overcoming trauma. Is it feasible? I definitely believe it is. But
in all scenarios? Because I feel like there are many different scenarios where it's like, this is not possible.
I, again, will say I think it's feasible. Okay. Is it easy? Is it something that you're going to like just wake up one day and it's like, oh, I don't feel that anymore? No, I don't think that that's realistic. I think with a mix of, you know, appropriate mental health practices like going to therapy, and some people need, you know, chemical balancing. So they need to be on, you know, mood stabilizers or different medications that's going to stabilize their chemicals in their body. Like, you have to find what works for you, which is going to give you the peace that you desire. But therapy works. Therapy really works. But the key thing that I learned in my previous experience, we talked a lot about my marriage before. The thing that you have to note is that when trying to heal or recover from trauma, you can't still be in that traumatic environment. You will constantly re-trigger yourself, and it becomes very difficult for you to overcome something when you're constantly being triggered by it. So you have to remove yourself from that traumatic space, or that space or environment that causes you harm, and then you are going to be able to work on it and heal it.
I feel that. And I feel like therapy, a lot of people feel like therapy doesn't work. Do you think therapy actually works?
I feel like therapy gives you tools to deal with life.
Yeah.
So it's all in how you apply the tools. If you don't take something away from therapy, it can be one or two things. Either you haven't built the necessary bond with your therapist to really go into the hard places and the deep things, or two, you're not applying the tools and resources that they're giving you to better manage your emotions.
Exactly. I was like, emotional intelligence is really big.
Everybody doesn't have emotional intelligence.
That's very true. That is very true. I always say psychiatry, because I feel like some people just need medication. Now, I know we don't trust it, but for a person who does take medication,
it's a two-edged sword. Because I think we talked about this on the episode's medical mistrust, right? There is within the healthcare industry an over-reliance on prescribing medication, specifically when it comes to African American or Black patients. That's why I say it cannot be a one size fits all. You can't just take medication. And some people, therapy is not alone what it's going to take to get you into a healthy mental health space, right?
What do you say? So do you feel that therapy is best when it's from an unbiased person?
Well, any therapist worth their salt is going to be unbiased. I think that, now I will say,
it's not usually the best when they're unbiased. I feel like it's best when they're
all therapists are supposed to be unbiased.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're biased, then it's like you're not really helping.
Well, there are actual laws requiring that, like my mother's a therapist. She can't legally treat me.
Not at all.
Because it's a conflict of interest.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Most, if not all, I don't like to speak in absolutes, but most therapists are supposed to be unbiased. And if you're encountering a biased therapist, then you shouldn't seek them.
That part, yeah. No.
I will also say that, I would look at it like, treat your mental health like you would like a disease or like cancer. Like, you just don't get chemo and that's all you do. There's sometimes extractions or surgery, then there's chemo, then you have to change your diet, then there's rehabilitation. Like, treat your mental health like that. Sometimes the surgery is removing yourself from that traumatic environment or cutting off the people that trigger you into traumatic episodes. Then the therapy is like your chemo, where it's like removing all of the residual yuckiness and negative feelings and hostile emotions out of your body. And the rehab or the maintenance that you would do is practicing those tools that you got in therapy in your new relationships and using those tools to better manage your life. If something that caused you great stress was not making yourself the priority in relationships or in your life, and you felt depleted and felt like you had nothing left to give. Well, in your new relationships, making sure that you hold clear boundaries, making sure that you always take time out for, if you know that getting your hair and nails done every 2 weeks makes you feel safe and makes you feel at peace, make sure you always allocate the resources to be able to do that no matter what happens. That's how you maintain a positive mental health space.
I agree. So do you feel like there's a formula to healing?
I do and I don't.
Okay.
I feel like there's no one-size-fit-all treatment for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like there are universal tools that, if applied properly, should help with the person. But then there's always an exception to the rule. You know what I'm saying? So I do believe that there are tools that, like, effective communication is going to work like 90% of the time in a relationship. Like, if you take a step back and you are having a disagreement with somebody and you stop using I statements and talk about how you feel, that tends to take the temperature out of the conversation, right? But if you're dealing with a narcissist or a person who has the inability to remove themselves from a situation and think objectively about how they make another person feel, then that's like the exception. And it's like, regardless, that conversation is probably not going to be the easiest to have, whatever way you phrase it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. So what is your personal formula to healing?
I'm on that journey right now. And I find it to be an interesting one. As I spoke previously, I've been going through a divorce, and this breakup has been the biggest roller coaster of my life. This healing journey has been like very interesting. I feel like this breakup has been very different than any breakup I've ever done, and good and bad. You know what I mean? Like, I think this breakup was a lot more drawn out, specifically with me having to file for divorce and do all of that stuff. But also, I don't feel like this overwhelming like heartbreak that I've kind of been like waiting for, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I made peace a long time ago with the fact that the relationship wasn't working, and I was more so sad about my lifestyle changing because I felt like I'm too big of an age to be like struggling and on somebody's like couch and like, you know, like those hard spots that like breaking up or living with somebody can put you in.
Yeah.
But that's not my journey. I just moved into a 2-bedroom house, and it's fab, and I'm super excited in the summer. Yes. Be lit. My healing journey for me right now is setting boundaries for everybody in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you what I can't have, and I can't give what I can't afford, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is what's in my cup is for me. What overflows is for everybody else.
Period.
So if I don't have the money or the time or the energy to put into relationships or to put into projects, I've gotten really good about saying no. And I'm not sorry. It's how I maintain my peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot in my relationship, what I learned is that I would say yes to things out of obligation or feeling like, based on the nature of this relationship, or you're my boyfriend, you're my fiance, you're my husband, I can't tell you no. But you don't have that same loyalty. You don't have that same obligation or same, what's the word I'm looking for? The same urge or the same conviction to treat me the same. So it's like I'm setting myself up for disappointment by treating relationships this way, when it's like, if I feel a no on my spirit, I should probably get it off, because if I do it, it's going to be begrudging. And then 2, if you don't reciprocate, I'm going to feel some type of way.
That's true.
So for my peace of mind, if I don't feel like going somewhere, I love you down, but no.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't feel like helping you with something, I'm sorry, no. Because it costs me on the long run to do things that I don't want to do.
Yeah, I feel that. Okay, we have a question from Valentino. Do you feel therapy is always the way, and why? I'll let you go first with that.
I've had a very long and storied history with therapy throughout my entire adolescence, right? I'll go back and say, finding a therapist that you feel comfortable with and trust is 70% of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the mind that creates the toxic behaviors is not the mind that's going to fix them. So having an outside lens and establishing tools and resources that are going to help you break down the trauma or give language to your pain. Because sometimes it's just as simple as giving language to the things that you are experiencing or the pain. And the therapists are trained to give language and allow you to describe experiences in a way where you can, in a safe space, unpack them and then neatly pack that shit up in a bag that you can carry on as a carry-on and not the 18 bags of luggage that you started therapy with, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's that I like that imagery of unpacking, because it's like you have all this baggage,
Right.
You're unpacking it. Not all of it is going to serve you. Like not all of it is going to be necessary for your journey. So letting go of the hurt that your parents gave you, if you start to understand and look at your parents from the lens of your parents are humans too, and they could only give you what they had. And if they didn't give you something, it's because they didn't have it to give. You have to give them grace. Okay, that's something that I can let go of. And that for me was monumental in therapy. Acknowledging and understanding that my mother was fallible. My mother was a single mother to 2 boys, a victim of abuse, a victim of circumstance, a victim of being a Black woman in America. And we did the best that she could. And even the places in which she caused me the greatest heartbreak and harm, for her, she was only trying to love and protect me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had to take myself out of it and be like, oh shit, I'm being selfish by holding you to a standard that your mother failed you at. Like that's generational pain, that's generational trauma, that's generational curses. So I had to make a conscious decision to be like, even though you putting me in conversion therapy hurt me, you thought you were doing what's best for me, so I can forgive you for that. That was 60% of my baggage there. Because if a foundational person in your life hurts you, it's really difficult for anybody further down the line to come into your life and you to be vulnerable with them, because the foundation was cracked.
That's true.
So, unpacking the trauma about my relationship with my mother, and it would be to heal my relationship with my mother, which in turn made me look at all of my other relationships in my life differently. Because it was like, I got to a point where it was like, well, if my mother, who for the first 22 years of my life was my greatest villain, can treat me with decency and respect and can communicate with me in a way that makes me feel edified, why would I let a man talk to me in a way that doesn't honor me or honor my body or honor my life or honor my experiences? That doesn't make sense to me. Sure. But therapy helps me get to that point.
I feel that. It takes time. I'll definitely say
therapy is definitely not a quick fix.
It's not. People think it is.
On minimum, it's gonna take you a year of consistent therapy to deal with like one issue.
Yeah.
Like it's like that's why like I stop and start therapy. I'll tackle something and I'll get to emotional plateau, and then once I see that like my trauma starting to resurface, I'm like, it's time to really get back into therapy.
Mm-hmm. I've been consistent since I was middle school child. I had my moments off because therapists would just disappear, and then I started having abandonment issues with that too, and I was just like, dang, that's
real.
Me. Oh my gosh. But to answer the question, I feel like it's not always the only way, but it is a very fundamental way of healing. For me, it's easy to talk to people, especially when, again, like Caleb said, 11 said, you have to have a relationship with your therapist, because if you don't, then it's like, I don't want to talk to you. Like me, I have preferences always. When I'm looking for a therapist, first thing I gotta know, you gotta be Black, period. You gotta be Black. That's just hands down.
Yeah, because there's certain cultural things that you have to explain to a non-Black person that kind of takes away. That kind of takes away from your therapy.
Mm-hmm. I got to make sure you're Black. And then if I can get past that, then I'm like, okay. I typically bond better with women, Black women. So I was like, usually all my therapists have been Black women, but I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't mind having a Black queer male therapist because I've been open to that since meeting Marty. And like, yeah, Marty has now looked over a lot of other people here under Healthy Him. So I was like, you know what? Black queer therapist is cool, but it's hard to find them. So it's like a Black woman will suffice. And now I have the best Black woman therapist ever. I actually had therapy today after the show. So, okay. I'm excited, but no, it's not always the way, but it is, to me, one of the best ways. And again, we have our ways with medication and everything, but I do feel like also being on medication and figuring out what is the actual root of issue that you can, you know, essentially unpack to then heal from. Because with me, I was always angry and trying to figure out, okay, why am I always angry? Why am I always feeling like so fluctuated? I'm just a Gemini. But like, no, like, bitch, you're depressed. Like, you're depressed as fuck.
Bitch, you're depressed.
Like, you're really depressed. So it's just like, look, okay, I'm depressed. You're right. So, and it runs in my family, like mother's bipolar, grandfather, grandmother, major depressive disorder. I was like, okay, it makes sense. So me being on medication now is like, I feel a lot better when I take my medication, and I'm like, okay, now I understand. I need this. And although I was always against, like, oh, I hate pills. I used to throw up taking pills growing up. But now it's like, I need this, because otherwise I'm like, I don't feel the same. I mean, I do, but I don't. It kind of just depends. But therapy is definitely the cherry on top, because talking to my therapist gets a lot out of my brain. And it's always good to get that, like, outside source opinion that just, like, doesn't really know you, like, personally. Like, they didn't grow up with you, or they don't see you from day to day. It's just you telling them something and being like, okay, well, based on the situation that you're giving me, this is what it is, and that's what it should be. And that's just that. And I love that. That input and insight is really beneficial. So if you are considering therapy, Valentino, I think your father has said it many times, but if you are considering it, I think you should look into it, and I'm sure he will help you find a great therapist that you would enjoy. You don't have to, you know, take other things. I don't know. It was something that I think he mentioned, some item, I can't remember, some type of fruit, I don't know, that heals. It's like medicine, not medicine, I don't know. It's weird. But we'll talk about it off air. Is it that? It might be that. I don't know.
Now, people do say doing a peyote experience is like 5 years of therapy.
Ooh, child.
Like, a lot emotionally, spiritually comes to the surface. That's why you have to do it with a shaman. To help guide you through that experience.
Interesting. So it's a drug.
We'll talk about it offline.
Is that what you're talking about, Valentino? Respond if you're still on here. I don't know if you are, but yeah, okay, interesting. We'll look into that. But without further ado, we are about to get into a commercial break, y'all, and we'll be right back after these brief
Are you in need of a quick and easy way to know your HIV status? Swab and Chill is a discreet way to learn your status in the comfort of your own home. The process gives you results in 20 minutes. Swab the upper gums, swab the lower gums, and voila! Simply follow the colorful step-by-step instructions located inside the kit. or call APLA and we can assist you virtually. In addition, all kits include condoms and lube for that penetrative fun. For our trans clients, we have Swab and Chill Plus, a customizable kit for trans-specific needs. And we haven't forgotten about COVID either. All kits include personal protection gear, like face masks, comfortable yet stylish, a personal touch tool for dealing with those germ-infested handles and ATM keypads, wet wipes for those little messes that need cleaning up. Also, keep that summer body protected with Swab and Chill sunscreen. And don't forget about our fanny packs for those quick trips to the store. All this can be yours. Simply call Swab and Chill at 323-329-9713 or email us at swabandchill@apla.org. We would love for you to be part of our Swab and Chill family.
Come swab and chill with us!
And we is back. Welcome back to the Healthy Him Show, y'all. We are here every Tuesday, 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will not be here on 5/20, I believe 3. Yes, because that is my birthday week. Okay, so we will not be here.
I'm just gonna be outside.
Okay, I am, but not here outside. I'm gonna be out there, not out here, but out there. Okay, period. But getting back to the conversation, we are talking about no more drama, no more pain. Okay, a lot of people have been traumatized. A lot of people have experienced trauma in different ways, and we are talking about how to heal after and what do you do to move on and what experiences have you had, coping mechanisms, coping methods, and all those little things in between. Okay, so getting back to it.
Okay, so
go ahead. You go ahead.
When we talk about coping mechanisms, I feel like everybody has a vice.
Yes, definitely.
I think in managing and being self-aware to know and to have the foresight to see when does your reliance on your vice get to the point of addiction or misuse is a very fine line.
That's a good
one. Like for me, I had to take a step back. When was the leather and lace ball? What month was that in? March.
Yeah.
I had to really I'm not a person that likes to get drunk socially. I get drunk in the comfort of my inner circle. It's like a house party, or I know that whatever I say or do will not be held against me. Mm-hmm. And it's particular, I was really going through it and struggling to find a new housing and still processing this failed marriage. And I had got really, really drunk at a Kiki ball. And I showed my ass. I carried them. And it really on camera too. And the girls got me drunk. And then had me on the camera saying the things. And it had me look at it. I'm like, am I drinking too much? Because I've never really been a drinker, but what would possess me to get this drunk publicly when that's not my tea. That's not what I do. That's not what I'm into. So for me, I always try to be introspective and say, hey, am I doing this from a healthy space, or am I doing this because I don't want to feel something? And when I see that, I'm like, I need to lean into these feelings so that I'm not, I'll end up back in rehab. Just to be very honest, I ended up my first rehab experience when I was 13, 14 for substances and self-mutilation. And I know what that road looks like when you put yourself in a space where you are trying to use substances or sex or whatever to numb the pain. There's no way around trauma. There's no way around your feelings. The only way to get through it is to go through it and to face it head on. And one thing I know is energy never dies. It's only transferred. And if you try to avert trying to deal with the things that are causing you pain are traumatic, they're just going to show up in other ways in your life. Anger is not a baseline emotion. It is what happens when sadness is not properly addressed or dealt with.
Or a bunch of other things. hurt, like that's a big iceberg. Like me and my therapist talk about it all the time. Like there's a big iceberg, and it's like, oh, it looks like anger right here, but then the under part of the iceberg is like you're hurt, you're disappointed, you're this, you're that. It's like a bunch of other.
Those are all synonyms for sadness.
Exactly. So you're like all deep down, you feel something totally different, but what you're like showing and displaying externally looks like, oh, this person is like furious. So it's like, no, you just like
their feelings were hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So be careful of the coping mechanisms that you use, and just make sure you're not overly reliant. Like I'm one. Can you talk about ganja?
What?
Ganja?
I mean, it's legal, but it depends on how much you talk about it.
Well, I personally like enjoy, a little bit of Mary Jane after a long work day to calm my nerves and to help me sleep. I love a glass of wine, but I'm not drinking wine every day, what I mean? Or I'm not going through a bottle. So just stuff like that, like modern, like there's a difference between unwinding and taking the edge off. And I can't function unless I do this thing. Once you get to that point,
that's an addiction.
I don't like the term addiction anymore. That's misuse.
Okay, there we go.
That's when you're leading into like the misuse disorder and an over-reliance on substances. And I want to be inclusive, because I know, like I said, everybody has a vice. Everyone has that thing that they're struggling with.
Yeah.
Or that thing that they not need or enjoy that kind of helps balance them out. But you just have to be careful in the way that we indulge. And sometimes it can start off innocent. Or like, I'm just doing this because I had a long day. But when the days get longer and you go from 1 glass to 5, it's like, we got to watch out for that.
That's true.
What about you?
What about me?
What are some of the things that you like to do to help you heal or help you process your past trauma? What are your coping methods?
Therapy. Okay. But it depends. I typically talk to myself. If I'm not talking to my therapist, I journal. Journal is beneficial.
I just got into the journal. You saw me in the journal earlier. It's so kind.
It is.
It's so kind.
Very therapeutic.
I write letters to myself in my journal.
That's sweet. I love that. And read it back to yourself.
Yeah.
You should. That's the main things. If we're talking about borderline things that shouldn't be done, I do, like to indulge in alcoholic beverages here and there.
So we're gonna unpack that?
No, I just, I enjoy alcoholic beverages.
There's nothing wrong with going out and letting your hair down.
No, but I have like a whole bar in my house.
Oh, we haven't talked about this.
Yeah, and I just enjoy, some wine here and here.
No, wine is fine, but
wine is fine.
If you're going for that brown liquor every day when you get off.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Definitely not getting that. I had kidney stones before.
I had kidney stones too.
Yeah, I never wanted.
But they were from stress.
Okay, no, mine was.
Oh, whoa.
But yeah, it was just, I never want that again.
No,
so.
They said kidney stones is actually worse than labor pains.
Interesting.
Did you get the PRs out?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I had to go to the doctor and he said I flushed it out. So maybe
I had to pee mine out, and it was painful coming out. And I had to take this stuff for them to shrink because they were really big.
Surgery. Okay, yeah, mine weren't that big. Yeah, no. They just told me drink some cranberry juice.
Never marry Marys.
I'm screaming. Not stress cause good. I cannot. I've never heard that. That's a key.
Stress or alcohol. I was never much of a drinker.
That's scary.
Since like high school.
But okay, we're talking about coping methods as well.
Let's go to question 5.
Yeah, let's do that. So I meant to XS, but it's okay. So PTSD versus PTSS. Post-traumatic slave syndrome versus post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's get into both.
Oh, you wanna go there?
Yes.
I will start off by saying that I would say that post-traumatic slave disorder or post-traumatic slave syndrome is real. Mm-hmm. It is a very nuanced and nice way of specifically talking about the generational post-traumatic stress disorder that's been handed down to the people of the African diaspora, specifically in the Americas.
Yeah, baby.
I don't think that the average non-Black person understands how much about Black culture is specifically derived from our time as being enslaved people, from the food that we eat, from the way that we interact culturally, from the way that we parent our children. It all was born out of a survivalist mentality. So you have the trauma of being of the first generations that were like actually ripped from the shores of Africa, interbred with different tribes, and brought to America and enslaved. So that's traumatic. That's complex trauma generation 1. But then you get into complex trauma generation 2, 3, and 4, and 5 that grew up in America, never could read or write, never could celebrate their faith in its original form, have their wives and children and husbands ripped apart and taken from them at a moment's whim. That's that trauma. Then you have post-slavery trauma, that generation that had to deal with the foundation of Jim Crow and the Ku Klux Klan and, you know, all of the promises that were deferred, what they thought that when those Black people were signing up to fight in the Civil War and they thought that they were going to become fully realized citizens, just to figure out, no, that was a pipe dream that they were. So that's generation 6 that had to deal with that trauma. Then you have the post-Jim Crow era with the Martin Luther King generation and the civil rights movement and watching your friends be killed for running a protest, that trauma. Then you have the trauma that was inflicted on the generation after from the crack epidemic. Then you have the AIDS epidemic on top of that. And now we have today. None of those generations' trauma were acknowledged because for the first 8, 9 of those generations, their pain wasn't even actualized or given the validity they needed from the rest of society. It was just this blanket, oh, Black people are ghetto, Black people are hood, or they're scared. Like none of their pain or their experiences were acknowledged. So we also don't talk about the fact. I'm gonna go there.
I just thought about something totally funny there.
There was a concerted effort to destabilize the Black family that was led by the federal government for the majority of Black people's time in America. That's trauma. You know, watching all of your civil rights leaders be murdered, that's trauma. It's trauma from what I feel like I was traumatized by watching George Floyd be murdered on the internet. Like there is all of these instances, like we described what trauma was at the beginning of the show. There's all these instances of traumatic events and situations that we're experiencing collectively, right, with our generations. But what they don't talk about is the fact that there's been scientific evidence that proves that trauma gets into the genes. It's passed down genetically. That memory, that pain, those experiences evolve into our genetic makeup. So I definitely would say that post-traumatic slave syndrome is a definitely more heavy thing to overcome, which is why all Black people should be in some form of therapy, in my opinion. But to have post-traumatic slave syndrome on top of PTSD that's unrelated to Blackness is a whole nother piece.
It is.
Anybody can have PTSD, anybody. But the specific experience of being a descendant from enslaved Africans in this country is a very nuanced and complicated experience that, in my opinion, without professional help or resources, will at some point in your life, your mental health is going to be compromised.
I agree. It's definitely a psychological thing. And I feel like because it's so intergenerational, we don't unpack it. Simple as that. I feel like we don't unpack it. I feel like Black people will just be like, you don't need to go to therapy. Like, go to church. Go to church. Go to God.
But
like,
the Bible says that faith without works is dead. And you can't expect God to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Okay.
So how do you expect God to take away your hurt and your pain when you won't even go to therapy and talk about it or give name to the thing that you're trying to pray away?
Exactly. So I feel like when we say go to therapy, if therapy is beneficial to you, if you feel like it's beneficial to you, go to therapy. If not, and you genuinely feel like if you go to church and talk to God and go to the altar if that's for you and that is beneficial to you. Do that as well. Whatever helps you heal.
We don't want to get into how the Black church is rooted on whiteness. So
That's true also.
we can unpack that later.
Yeah. But as a whole, I feel like because we don't unpack these things, this is why we continue toxic generations, essentially.
This is why Black people can't get along. This is why Black people can't get ahead as a collective.
That's true.
Because we're still holding onto that crab in the barrel mentality that was given to us 500 years ago.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of ignorance.
It's a lot of ignorance in our community, but I'm hopeful that maybe in our lifetime we can see some change. I love that the conversation about mental health has evolved so rapidly in the last 10 to 15 years. Because I remember when I was in middle school going to therapy, people were like, "Oh, you crazy."
Yeah.
And now it's like it's taboo to call somebody crazy, child.
Mm-hmm.
So I see culture evolving in that way, and I know that there are a lot more people who are becoming Black therapists or seeking out Black therapies. Shout out to Taraji B. Henson, who created a whole initiative around getting Black students therapy on HBCU campuses and catering to Black women specifically. I think it's a beautiful thing and a wonderful thing.
Black men. Black men.
Her latest initiative was Black women. I saw her.
She must have changed it. Oh, okay.
No, so there's been different targeted initiatives and demographics. Her latest one, I think, is, don't quote me on this, but I want to say Spelman.
Okay. Well, she went to Howard, so it makes sense. Okay, come on, DC. She's from DMV. Work.
You know, I love a DMV area work.
I'm screaming. But yeah, do you? Because, okay, I'm going to shut up. We'll talk about that
Don't tell my team, bitch. I said what I said.
But yeah, so I just feel like as a community, we got to come together and acknowledge that healing is needed and also therapy is okay and that we do experience trauma. And because of the enslavement that our ancestors had and experienced, there is still issues that we have that we don't talk about.
Yeah, your grandmother or your mother beat you with a belt because her great-great-great-great-great-grandperson was beat with a whip and told that this was what they needed to fall in line.
Right.
It's trauma.
Someone saying, "Oh, go do that." I'm like, "Why?" Child asking why. Because I said
even
so.
the "do as I say, not as I do" was a saying that was passed down through slavery.
I see that. But then also, you know, fathers calling their daughters bitches, you know, and then the daughter calling their child a bitch, and it's just, you know, we got to do better.
Oh, this bitch want to be cute.
We got to do better.
Okay.
Intergenerational. It's like we got to do better. We can't, you know, disrespect our children or our grandparents or our or our grandchildren.
Touché, daughter.
So, you know, we got to just make sure that we are all, you know, being respectful to our family. That's all. But nevertheless, what other means of healing do you think most people overlook that we didn't get into yet?
The way that I approach health or look at health in this era of my life, I call it global stability. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the areas in which a person needs to establish health or good health is physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. I think a lot of those are overlooked. I think because of the medical mistrust that the African American community has in this country, a lot of people suffer in silence about their physical ailments until it's too late. Mm-hmm. I think because of this historic stigma around mental health disparities or mental health issues within our community, there are a lot of disparities in the mental health field, which makes it even difficult for Black people to seek therapy because therapy is not something that we've been talking about for the last 100 years. So when it comes time for us to interact with the mental health field, we don't have representation because the people that were supposed to be our therapists were taught therapy was sissies, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or crazy people. That's true. I think that spiritually, as a historic people that came from the Yoruba faith and Muslim and Judaism, like all these different cultures that were melting pots and allowed to believe in Africa, indoctrinated into Christianity when they came to the Americas, has limited our spiritual and faith practices in a way that I don't think there could ever be recompensed. So that kind of stunts a lot of us spiritually And then financially, Black people aren't taught financial literacy. Black people aren't taught how to manage wealth because we've been kept out of those conversations for so long. So I would say when healing or escaping a traumatic event or trying to recover or put your life back together, tackle those 5 areas, and I guarantee your life will change in a year.
Yeah. And we talked about it on our first show when we talked about healthy. What is healthy? We talked about the different aspects and dimensions of health, like the social, the financial, everything you just named, essentially, emotionally, physically. So all of that is important. So if you're not taking care of all of that, then again, are you really healthy? Is the question.
I don't think so.
And it's like, are you really healing also?
I don't think so.
So it takes time. Other parts that you really didn't name, I feel like you covered everything because that's the well-being overall. But for me, I feel like, child, I just want to push medication.
But this is my thing.
I do. I'm always
as a person who has been in a mental health care facility, there is an over reliance on medication. It's not a one size fit all.
This is true.
That's why if a person prescribes you medication without therapy along with it, 1.
Yes, I agree.
2, it might not be the first medication you prescribe might not be the best fit for you.
Oh, hell no.
It might take some time. I am apprehensive, or I'm always apprehensive around like running to medicines or like pharmaceutical medicines.
What is marijuana?
It's not a pharmaceutical.
It's medicinal.
I did have that recommendation at one point in time, but it's not currently. I think that you have to get with your therapist and figure out what will be the best thing for you, because maybe you taking a Lopertol or whatever it's called is not what's going to be best for you. Maybe finding out what's going to work for you. And I think we have to stop this one size fit all. It's like almost 9 billion people in the world.
Exactly. No.
Like what works for you, part of it might work for me, but the whole regimen is not going to work
at all. No.
So
I'm saying about skincare routines.
If therapy works for you, with the tried and true formula that has been most effective for the majority of people is a combination of therapy and medication, but it does not work for everybody.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend just one or the other. I wouldn't recommend over reliance on the other, like taking a pill every day and then going to therapy every 2 months is not going to work. But sitting down with your doctor that you built a relationship with, that you feel safe with, and identifying a mental health plan for yourself, especially after recovering or healing from a traumatic event, I think is the best place to start.
I definitely agree with all of that. You definitely have to have a relationship with your therapist, as I said before. And with that, I have a therapist.
Actually, with any healthcare professional.
Okay, period. Yes.
Because you have to really advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
And you can't, at the end of the day, if it's not something that you feel comfortable with, you're not going to adhere to it.
And I have a therapist and a psychiatrist. Both are women of color. Period.
Word.
Okay, my psychiatrist is an Indian woman, and my therapist is a Black woman. I love women, okay? I love women of color. But I'm screaming. But my therapist made it very clear, like, what she felt it was, but she did not have the credentials to prescribe me certain things. And I know not everybody is going to have the same thing. I have gone through multiple medications with my psychiatrist where I had to change different types, like the milligrams, the different like types of medication, multiple times. Like for the last 4 or 5 months, I've been dealing with her. So like now it's like I finally gotten to a point where I'm like, this regimen works for me and I'm going to stick to it. This makes me feel good. I feel okay. I don't feel like, So it's going to take time for sure, but I push it because I feel like just how we were with mental health in the Black community, we are with medication and being like, on medication in general. It's like, oh, well, I'm in therapy now. I don't need meds. It's like, no, you may need both, baby. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, but everybody doesn't need both.
Everybody doesn't need both. But I'm saying sometimes with this PTSS, sometimes you may. But again, get you a psychiatrist to see if you feel like something's wrong, especially if it's hereditary. If you have 3 bipolar uncles, your grandmother has PTSD and going on with other stuff, then your mother got MDD, major depressive disorder, and you just like, I'm fine, I think you should reevaluate that because I'm pretty sure you're not. Just saying.
I would agree.
So you gotta look into it. That's what I'm gonna say. But how do we tie this in really quick with sexual health? Like, how do you feel like trauma comes in with sexual health?
Oh, I think the number one misdiagnosed addiction is sexual addiction.
You think so?
Absolutely. Especially within the
I
queer
always
community.
say bipolar disorder.
I think especially within the queer community, a lot of us come into our identity through sexual acts. So we use sexual acts as a means to establish connection, a means to feel seen, a means to express our queer identity, especially in those DL spaces. So there's definitely a correlation between mental health and sexual health. A person who has a strong mental mind is probably not going to engage in those riskier sexual habits or activities as a person who is mentally unwell or a person who is struggling or recovering from traumatic events. I mean, I know so many people who had a horrific sexual experience or experienced some type of sexual abuse and later down the line ended up working in sex work because it devalued their body or their morality and the way that they saw themselves. So I definitely see the through line between mental health and sexual health. And I think that once we clear the way for the stigma of mental health completely, then we can address sexual health in a more holistic way.
I feel that. And that's what Healthy Young's all about. Okay, mind, body, and soul, holistic approach.
Okay.
But with trauma and sexual health, I say it definitely comes when people, like you said, someone becoming a sex worker. Like if you were sexually molested as a child, and then when you get older, you're like, well, I like aggressive sex. I like when this person.
Yeah, you have to unpack that, baby.
Yeah, like this person.
Because why do you want to be choked between the inch of your life?
Yeah.
Like, what about that does it for you?
Like, I want to be slapped. I want to be spat on. I want this. And it's like, oh, I want to be tied up. I want this. And it's like, did you have that as a child? And then they talk about it like, yeah, like my uncle used to tie me up and rape me.
I actually went on a date with somebody recently, and they said, huh? We're not going to talk about it.
Okay.
I'm not thinking watch. They actually said that they felt like they were gay because they were molested. And
that's something too. A lot of people think that, but it's like
I don't feel like that's to be true, but I definitely see that there's a correlation between trauma and sexual health.
Definitely, and that's something we need to unpack because with that, you're not always taking the right precautions when it comes to having sex,
or you're not even having the right mindset to engage in sex.
This is true. So, yeah, think on it, y'all. But to close, because we always end with the advice portion. What advice would you give our viewers currently starting over and or healing from trauma they have recently acknowledged?
Okay, we'll look in the camera and say this.
Yes, please do.
It is okay to be selfish.
It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not have the answers all the time. But when you are healing or recovering from a traumatic episode, series, or season in your life, take the time to figure out who you are and what moves you and what brings you joy, and to lean into that. You are important, you are enough, and you deserve to live the best and most authentic life that you possibly can. And it's okay that it's going to take a long time to get there. Rome wasn't built in a day. So take the time to learn and discover yourself. Take some time to get yourself globally healthy and stable, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. And I promise you, you'll be healthy and healed sooner than you can possibly believe.
Well, yes. Okay. And that's all I really got to say about the subject, because at the end of the day, he said it all. If you take the time for yourself and really sit with yourself and know like what you need for you, whether it's journaling, whether it's going to a therapist, whether it's getting on medication, whether it's just, I don't know, going for a jog, screaming to the top of your lungs.
I got one more thing to say.
I don't know, but
it's important that you deal with it now, because it's easier to recover and bounce back from these things when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Trying to recover from trauma when you're 60 and you're set in your ways and half of your friends have died and you don't really have that much time left. Like, if you don't learn from these experiences now and figure out what moves you and edifies you and builds you up, you will spend the rest of your life searching and longing, and the same lessons will keep getting taught to you over and over and over again. And so God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, feels like you've mastered the lesson.
Exactly. And I feel like we're in a good progressive state with Gen Z and moving forward, where a lot of people are acknowledging like not only mental health, but just everything that is more therapeutic, where it's like, oh, that's not a bad thing. You know, it used to be like a bad thing back in the day, but now it's like, okay, I accept that. That works. So anything is possible. That's all
So those that believe.
Okay, and that's period. This has been us. I keep
11.
saying your name. Yes, go ahead.
11.
And Ryan Z saying bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Pyromedianetwork's YouTube channel for more awesome content. Plus, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live or upload new videos. Visit pyromedianetwork.com today, not just to check out our incredible roster of talented creatives, but also to gain access to exclusive bonus material available only to our Pyro fam. Show your support for this Black-owned indie network by donating today. Help us keep igniting brands everywhere.